Rimworld, a hostile environment where you fend off brutal raids to eke out a life. Some want to simply see you die, while others want to survive themselves. To survive on this lawless planet, sometimes that means taking what you can to ensure that survival. To be happy on this death-stricken bowl of anguish, the more you have, the more you need. It is unavoidable. A loop of grueling agony that you pray leads to your escape, to find a better life than this, a life of glitter and stars. Only one thing will get you there, the one thing everyone wants, the one thing everyone targets: wealth. Simply put, the more wealthy you are, the more attention you'll get. Raids, raid after raid, they will come to take what is yours. Each raid could be your last, but it doesn't have to be. To better prepare yourself and ensure your colony's survival, I will help you understand the enemies in your story from the storyteller's perspective. Let's begin. No matter who your storyteller is, they utilize a point value system, Storyteller Wealth, to determine what your raids will look like. This is shown in the game as raid points. Several key items are taken into consideration to determine raid points. Let me explain in detail. Raid points are the numerical measurement of how strong a raid is. It is a hidden number that can be shown via dev mode in the settings or by mods such as visible raid points. The link is in the description. The minimum raid point value of a single raid is 35. The maximum is 10,000. Before getting into the raid specifics, let's understand the raid point formula and how we can manipulate it to our benefit. Raid point formula is wealth plus pawn points times difficulty times starting factor times adaptation factor. Let's go in each one of these so we can understand them one by one. Wealth. It has the greatest impact on your raid strength. Without going into great detail, everything on your map contributes to your wealth. Wealth can be found by hitting the history menu and going into the statistics tab. 3 things primarily account for wealth: items, creatures, and buildings. Items have the biggest impact on your wealth, but this deserves its own guide and can be covered in a separate video. Comment and let me know if you'd like to see that. Pawn points. Pawn points are the value of your colonists, slaves, children, trainable animals, and player-controlled mechs. Pawns range in value depending on several factors and can be included in the wealth video. Generally speaking, health and skills determine this value, but they are also influenced by the following modifiers. Slaves are worth 0.75. Crypto sleep pawns are worth 0.3. Babies are worth 0. Children ages 3 to 13 are worth 0 to 0.5. Teens ages 14 to 18 are worth 0.5 to 1 times value. And then, of course, health is taken into consideration as well. The exact formula isn't known, but unhealthy pawns are not worth 100% of their value. This can be covered in more detail in that separate wealth video. Difficulty. Difficulty is a setting that affects the threat scale the storyteller will have. It can be changed in your settings and is picked when you start your story. It ranges from peaceful, which is a 0.1 modifier, community builder, which is a 0.3 modifier, adventure story, which has a 0.6 modifier, and then strive to survive, which has a regular 1 times modifier, making this the normal state of the game. Blood and dust has a 1.55 modifier, losing is fun has a 2.2 times modifier, and custom, of course, can be set anywhere from 0 to times 500% modifier. Starting factor. The starting factor is basically a grace period of 40 days once your story begins. The first 10 days are a times 0.7 factor. It then scales up from 0.07 to 1 times, from 11 to 40 days. After 40 days, it is a regular 1 times factor. Adaptation Factor. Adaptation Factor is the storyteller's acknowledgement of how well your story is going. This can either increase or decrease the difficulty. Adaptation Factor has a maximum range of 0.4 to 1.47 and can be changed in the storyteller settings. It also has a growth rate that is impacted by your colony's success or lack thereof, known as adapt days. That growth rate won't budge for the first 30 days of your colony's start, but after those 30 days, the game will check your colony every 12 hours, twice a game day, or 30 game ticks to determine how to impact that adaptation factor. To simplify this a bit, I'll quote the Rimworld wiki, as they use a great analogy on this subject. Think of it as a work sign that reads X days since last injury, observed by the storyteller. Adapt days to adapt factor ratio. Days equal factor. Negative 30 days equals times 0.4 factor. 0 days equals 0.8 times factor. 30 days equals a 1 times factor. 60 days equals a 1.2 times factor, and 100 days equals a 1.47 factor, which is the maximum. Lowering your adaptation factor is a known method for creating more favorable raids in the story. There are 2 ways to lower your adaptation factor for those more favorable raids. Understanding this creates your first defense in raids. Influencing your adaptation factor can arguably be the most important factor in your raid defense. If you get a maximum point tribal raid of approximately 250 pawns, but only 140 show up because of your adaptation factor, you've effectively halved the raid without firing a single shot or engaging a single trap at next to no cost. Let's discuss how to impact that adaptation factor. Number 1, colonist death. It doesn't matter how a colonist dies. Their death heavily impacts the adaptation factor. Days subtracted per death are minus 30 days for colonies with 19 or less pawns, and minus 20 adapt days for colonies with 20 or more pawns. Number 2, colonist downed. The game tracks how long it has been since a colonist was downed, and this impacts the adaptation factor. The ratio is minus days per pawn downed equal to the total pawns in the colony. So, at 1 pawn in the colony, you'll receive a minus 8 to your adapt days when that pawn is downed. For colonies with 2 to 10 pawns, you'll receive a minus 6 to the adapt days per colonist down. And then for colonies with 11 to 19 pawns, you'll receive a minus 5 to your adapt days per colonist down. And then for colonies with 20 plus pawns, you'll receive a negative 3.5 to your adapt days for each colonist down. The way a pawn dies or is downed does not matter. Can't stress that enough. So if you beat down a pawn or kill them with your own pawns, your own hands, it will still impact the adaptation factor, creating more favorable raid scenarios. One popular strategy requiring Rimworld Ideology DLC is setting rituals with the reward of a random recruit, and simply killing that new recruit upon arrival. This will quickly lower your adapt days. This has a minimum effect on mood and has next to no social impact, as they are usually not tied to any of your pawns in the colony. It's a quick way to get a new recruit with minimal effort and can be manipulated by loading your save state and retrying for more favorable results. I'm not a fan of this personally, but play the game your way, especially when learning all of its complexities. Now that we understand the formula for how raid strength is determined, which is once again raid point formula, wealth plus pawn points times difficulty times starting factor times adaptation factor. Let's look at how to understand when your colony will be attacked and in what ways. Raid windows. Raid windows usually happen within a specific timed intervals, known as raid frequency, and can be forecasted by other negative storyteller events. If a random hare goes mad, be prepared. It often means worse is soon to come. Negative storyteller events include beavers, blight, disease, eclipse, flash storm, heat wave, cold snap, mad animals, psychic drone, solar flare, shorts or zits, transport pod ghoul, gray paw, toxic fallout, and volcanic winter. Raid frequency. Raid frequency is entirely different from raid difficulty and is heavily impacted by the storyteller. Each storyteller has a unique raid window in which they will attack your colony. Covering vanilla storytellers only, the following storytellers are Phoebe Chillax, the easiest in raid frequency, but can be difficult to prepare for accurately. Roughly one raid window per 16 days. No raids between wealth spikes can lead to overwhelmingly powerful raids with little understanding and necessary preparation. Be warned. Cassandra Classic. Regular raid frequency, easy to prepare for and schedule. Raid window occurs roughly 1 to 2 times every 10 to 11 days. She can be very difficult when you struggle to survive a raid and the timer isn't waiting for your comfort. Her gameplay is the most consistent and will most accurately reflect your progression. That doesn't mean she's easy though. She can be difficult for sure. And then Randy Random. Truly the most random in raid frequency and difficulty. You can go whole years with no raid, then suddenly be hit by 2 raids with extra raid points at the same time. That's right, Randy has an extra modifier in his raid formula with a times 0.5 up to a 1.5 modifier that is applied. You guessed it, randomly. For that reason, Randy can both be very easy and very hard. Now that we have a better understanding of how raid points and raid frequency is determined, let's look at the types of raids and how they'll be considered in your story. Major threats. Major threats are how the game recognizes raid events. Major threats can be triggered by 3 different methods: storyteller choice, quest, and special triggers. Storyteller major threats are tied to a schedule, a raid window, as we previously discussed. Quest major threats are chosen by player via quest options as they appear randomly, something we can cover in detail in another video. Special triggers are limited to waste pack infestations, which spawn from deteriorating waste packs, and that's part of the biotech DLC. Storyteller major threats. Storyteller major threats are given different weight values. Weight is basically the likelihood of the event being chosen. Some major threats have a weight of 0 due to them requiring a very specific condition. Infestations and mass animal insanity are examples of this. Some major threats are gated behind a specific raid point value. Infestation, psychic ships, defoliator ships, and mech clusters all require a 400 raid point minimum. Major threat weight. Here we have a threat to weight ratio. And bear in mind, weight is impacted by DLC. Raids have a 7.4 weight. Defoliator ships have a 2 weight, but with DLC installed, a 0.4. Psychic ships have a 2 weight, with DLC a 0.4. Mech Clusters have a 0 weight because they're a part of DLC, royalty specifically, and once installed they have a 1.9 weight. Manhunter Packs have a 2 weight. Mass Insanity has a 1.3 weight. And then Infestations have a 2.7 weight. And then Problem Causers, which is also royalty DLC content, has a 0 weight, but with DLC has a 0.95 weight. Raid Generation. Raid Generation follows the Storyteller choosing to trigger a major threat and picking a raid. First, the faction is chosen. Each faction is considered separately and given their own weights. Human factions have a weight of 1. Mech factions' weight increases with raid points, which is why a lot of in-game raids are mechs. Mech factions have a 0 weight initially until 300 raid points, and are limited to assaults until 400 points. We'll get more on assaults later. Lastly, human factions can have a 0 weight in extreme temperatures. Once the faction, attack type, and arrival type have been chosen, it makes a raid composition. Each faction has defined raid compositions. Not all raid compositions are known at this time. Remember, it is possible for more than one raid to be triggered at a time. For an amazing breakdown on the raiders that can appear with each faction, be sure to check out the Rimworld wiki, linked in the description. Before discussing raid types, let's quickly acknowledge raider priorities. Raiders prioritize the following. Number 1, turrets, pawns, and unpinned animals. Number 2, furniture and flammables, which could be crops, wood walls, etc. Structures, excluding flammables, will not be targeted unless there's no path to prioritized targets. Different raid types will change the raiders' priorities, but we'll go over that more later. Assault. Assault raids come in many different forms. This raid type can occur with all humanoid and mechanoid factions, but not insectoids. An assault by a tribal faction will likely be your first raid. They may or may not be preparing for a brief period of time and will attack your colony. Immediate attacks mean they are attacking right away and have chosen targets right away. Preparing attacks means they have a period to prepare and the raiders will not yet have chosen their targets. Humanoid raids will always flee when enough enemies are downed or killed, if enough of your buildings are damaged as well. If they decide to leave after damaging your colony, they'll often take what loot and pawns they can as they leave. Ways to defend. Spike traps. The best way to handle early game raids is to place some spike traps in a hallway with an open door to your base. Raiders will mindlessly walk through the traps to get inside of your base if all prioritized targets are inside. This strategy is largely effective for early game raids and will not have the same effect in mid to late game raids. Claim and disperse. If no clear path is made into your base or directly to prioritized targets, raiders will disperse and attack random structures. A great strategy when new on a map or jumping into maps is to claim pre-built structures to distract raiders and break them into smaller groups. This strategy is effective at all stages of the game. Animal revenge. A difficult but effective way to help with raid defense is to trigger animal revenges by attacking aggressive animals. With the correct timing and some luck, you can trigger situations where raiders fight it out with animals, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Just be sure the raiders are closer in proximity to the animals targeted. When revenge is triggered, they will attack the closest humanoid regardless of faction. Melee block. Early game raids pose little threat in the way of range combat. Position your pawns so that they face one enemy at a time and pick them off one by one. This becomes less and less effective as you move to mid and or late game. Past the early game, assault raids become increasingly complicated and difficult. All early raids will be humanoid up until 300 raid points. For that reason, we'll focus on humanoid major threats first, then go over mechanoid and insectoid major threats afterwards, followed by other major threats. Let's go over the different assault raids your colony will face, focusing on humanoid defenses. Types of assaults. Once on your map, raiders may behave differently depending on their typing. I'll cover each type and known ways to defend against them. Regular assaults. Regular assaults are very straightforward. The raiders simply rush your colony and attack anything they can. If no clear path is made into your base or to your pawns, prioritized targets, the raiders will often disperse into random locations to chip away at your structures. This is the default assault type, and all assault raids can regress to this type of raid if the right conditions are met. So, preparing for this type of raid is the top priority for me in any story I create. To defend this, there are a few key strategies. Building walls. It is incredibly valuable to build a wall around your colony with multiple exits to step out and pick off raiders. Without a clear entry into your colony, the raiders will break into smaller groups and scatter to attack your structures. Popping back out of your fortifications to pick off raiders can be highly effective. Raiders will target your pawns and be forced to select new targets when your pawns go back within the walls, allowing you to target small groups of individuals and whittled raiders down. Be sure to repair doors used, as they often will be targeted by raiders for a period of time. If a door breaks and a path becomes available into your colony, all raiders will change targets and rush that location. Be warned. Killboxes. Killboxes are often massively popular. With a single point of entry made available to raiders and numerous structures placed to slow their attack down to a small trickle of one raider at a time, who walk into a room of your colonists all firing simultaneously. Needless to say, it's devastating. A more in-depth guide on killboxes is in the works, but this method is highly effective for regular assaults at all stages of the game, often making raids an insignificant matter. Burn boxes. Burn boxes are amazingly effective. A long winding path through a sealed room with a burnable area attached to create a superheated condition that will leave raiders passing out in flames due to heat strokes and eventually burning to ash. Not only does this kill raiders, but it nicely disposes of the remains too. Note, this is not effective against mechanoids. Dead Life Dust. Specifically available with Anomaly DLC, this is an incredible raid defense. Simply pile corpses in a designated area via stockpile zone or graves and trigger the Dead Life Dust to create an army of undead to defend your colony. A ton of fun and wildly effective. These undead do not target your pawns, so do not be concerned about it being a threat to your colony. Picking off raiders. Using mortars and ranged weapons is effective against raiders that prepare before attacking. If you are skilled enough, you can continue to do this throughout a raid by kiting the raiders until you've forced a retreat. Turret backpacks, psychic lances, hunter drones, and go juice, plus installed bionic legs, are all great tools for effective kiting. If the raiders use go juice, I would not suggest using this strategy, and I would suggest you would avoid it instead. Unusually clever raiders. Unusually clever raiders will avoid turrets and traps while trying to find their targets, unless the turrets are their targets, of course. Once you've established a full perimeter of walls, these raiders usually behave just like a regular assault. Sappers. Sappers will mine through or destroy walls to create the shortest route to your colonists' beds. Usually, all raiders present will work to mine a wall regardless of their traits or skills. They will also indiscriminately mine through any rock formations or structures to get to your colony. These raids are typically smaller than other raids. Attacking these raiders head on is often the best course of action. Also, attacking them at their breach creates a choke point and can be effective too. Breachers. Breachers will attack any and all structures, walls, or barriers in their way indiscriminately too. Tribals will arrive with breach axes, non-tribals with grenades, and mechs with termite mechanoids. A great strategy with breachers is to target those specialized breacher units to stop them from puncturing your defensive structures. Unlike sappers, usually non-breacher raiders will mindlessly wander around waiting for the breachers to do their work. Breachers often move ahead of their counterparts and are easy targets. Once the specialized breachers are defeated, the remaining raiders typically behave like a regular assault and can be dealt with accordingly. Siege Raiders. Siege Raiders will go to a target location on your map to build a fortification with mortars. Their materials won't arrive until they've made it to the target location. Once arrived, they will construct all their fortifications and proceed to fire on your colony. Supplies of food and mortar shells will continuously arrive while they raid your colony, so it's advisable not to wait for them. Eventually, the siege will end and the raiders will assault your colony. The assault will be a regular assault and can be triggered by the following: if enough time passes, not clear on the amount of time needed, if their mortars are destroyed or unbuildable, and then lastly, if they've suffered damage. Damaging siege raiders doesn't always immediately trigger their assault, but it has an 8% chance to trigger that assault per instance of damage suffered, regardless of the source of damage. Mechanoids won't siege your colony, but they may have mortars within their clusters. More on that later. Ways to defend against sieges. Trade fire. Exchanging fire between mortars is a tactic. However, this is not advisable. Unless you're highly confident in your ability to outgun the raiders, mortar fire is largely inconsistent in damage done to your colony, and a trade of fire can be costly. Animal Pulsar. Triggering an animal pulsar is only as effective as the animal wildlife is abundant on your map. However, this is a great way to end the siege and force the raiders to behave like a regular assault. If your colony is closer than the siege raiders, the maddened animals may never reach the target, choosing to pace outside of your colony instead. Be warned. Picking off raiders. This is my preferred way to handle a siege. Gathering pawns just at the limits of the raiders' range will entice a few to come to you at a time, allowing you to slowly kill them off until their assault is triggered. With sniper rifles, you can even target more highly prized targets for some satisfying results. Often, I'm able to shoot at these targets completely unsolicited without any retaliation until the regular assault is triggered. Drop pod raids. Center drop and scatter drop. Non-tribal and mechanoid factions can use drop pods to raid your colony. These can still arrive at the edge of the map, but they also can center drop in a cluster, punching through your base ceilings. Scatter drops are throughout the map in random locations. Both center and scatter drops will trigger an immediate attack with no preparation, but there can be a slight delay in their leaving the drop pods. Ways to defend drop pod raids. Mountain colony. One great way to prevent this is to build in a mountain, as drop pods cannot go through overhead mountain roofs. They can only go through regular ceilings and thin rock roofs. Mountain colonies come with their own risks though, more on that later. Limit space. Rooms without available spaces will not be targeted by drop pods. Any area with completely occupied space or with one open tile will not be targeted. Orbital trade beacon. If you have an unroofed powered orbital trade beacon, there's a 40% chance to draw a drop pod raid there, so be sure to set one up just outside of your base. Once landed, the drop pod raid will behave like a regular assault. Wood/carpet room. One strategy used by players is to leave a room completely open with wood flooring and or carpet, and to ignite it upon landing using flame weapons or traps. But this isn't a guarantee to work and is not advised. The orbital trade beacon can be used for this strategy as well. When it does work, it can be pretty entertaining. Psychic Ritual Sieges. Psychic Ritual Sieges are part of the Anomaly DLC. Cultists will appear at the edge of your map and move to the target location to start one of two rituals, either an abduction of your colonist or to summon Flesh Beast. Each ritual can be completed up to 4 times if not addressed. The ritual can fail or be interrupted at any time, resulting in a regular assault, even before the ritual begins. Flesh Beast summoned will appear near your colonist, but can target the cultist too. Cultists are highly aggressive and have a larger aggro range than other siege raids, leading them to push out and attack anyone who approaches. Killing or downing the leader of the ritual will immediately end the ritual and begin the regular assault. Ways to defend Psychic Ritual Sieges. Mortars. Firing mortars at the ritual leader can be the most effective way to handle these raids. I would advise using incendiary, tox, or dead life shells for their additional effects to supplement for the mortar's inaccuracies. Picking off cultists. Setting up a fortification and picking off cultists as they rush you can be effective. Many of the cultists have death refusal, and it can create scenarios where you get overwhelmed, so be careful. Don't use this strategy unless you're confident in your ability to kill the raiders. Animal Pulsar. Let the wildlife do your work for you. As we've mentioned before in other raid defenses, it can be highly effective with minimal effort. Focusing the leader. Incapacitating the ritual leader is the goal, triggering the regular raid. Getting close and using psychic lances can make all the difference. Using Sanguiphage leaps or invisibility can do just that. If you don't care to be precise, then just use an orbital targeter, triple rocket launcher, or a doomsday rocket for very satisfying results. Now let's take a look at Mechanoids. Mechanoids have a few unique ways in which they will attack your colonies. While they may not behave like a regular assault initially, they too can regress to a regular assault if the right conditions are met. General defenses against Mechanoids. EMP. Mechanoids are highly susceptible to EMP weapons, making them a must. When hit, it will trigger a stun status and allow you to attack the inflicted Mechanoids for a period of time without resistance. My suggestion is to use EMP grenades, as they are the easiest to use, get access to, and the most accurate. They also can be fired the most often, allowing you to stun lock groups of Mechanoids. Be warned, Mechanoids can resist stun status, which is noted as adapted in the game. I believe that can be resisted for 30 seconds once triggered. By creating a choke point, you can easily stun lock Mechanoids for your pawns to kill them with ease. Killboxes are highly effective for this. Building wall structures with one square outstretched from the others allows you to lob EMP grenades from safety while still hitting a large area past the wall. Now let's talk about Mechanoid raids. Emerge from water. Emerge from water raids are Mechanoid specific. They can spawn from shallow ocean water, shallow moving water, and chest deep moving water. This creates a danger for any colonies near water. These raids behave like regular assaults. Defoliator Ships and Psychic Ships. Defoliator Ships and Psychic Ships will land at random locations on your map. Both will be protected by a random assortment of Mechanoids that spawn asleep. These Mechanoids will roam and protect the ship until destroyed. Once the ships are destroyed, the remaining Mechanoids will behave like a regular assault. Defoliator Ships. Defoliator Ships will kill all plant life within 100 tiles randomly and prevent any new plant life from growing. This includes plants and hydroponic basins. Psychic Ships. Psychic ships will emit a psychic wave that limits your colonists' moods. This will target one gender or the other and will gradually grow in severity over time. It will periodically drive animals within range mad and can create immediate mental breaks for your colonists. There are a few key ways to fight these ships that I like to use, leaning to one side or the other. In my experience, Mechanoids defending a ship tend to gravitate to one side or the other. This may create a small opportunity to punch directly at the ship's parts with long-range weapons, but isn't guaranteed to work. Mortars. By far the most safe way to target these ships is with mortars. From the comfort of your colony, you can kill the Mechanoids and destroy the ship parts. However, this tends to be time-consuming and possibly expensive, as mortars are largely inaccurate. Animal pulsers. Mad animals can be effective for handling Mechanoids protecting the ship, but they won't target the ship itself. Animals also will not target the Mechanoids if they are asleep, so be sure to wake them first. Picking off the mechs. Just as you can with any raid prep or siege, you can pick off the mechs from a distance and then move in to destroy the ship afterwards. This is often the best strategy for handling these ships, in my opinion. If you're enjoying the guide so far and you like the scenes that are used in this guide, make sure you check out some of my stories and my playthroughs. I think you'll find them to your liking. Thanks so much for considering. Mech Clusters. Mech Clusters are part of the Royalty DLC and can be some of the most intimidating events to tackle. They spawn in with numerous Mechanoids, fortifications, turrets, and structures. Mech Clusters will spawn in inactive or asleep and have a countdown reflecting the activator. This can be seen by clicking on a structure within the Mech Cluster where it's shown in the window. If damaged, or if Mechanoids detect any pawns, it will awaken the cluster. If all turrets and structures are destroyed, the remaining Mechanoids will behave like a regular assault. If provoked, the defending Mechanoids will act as if in a regular assault for a period of time until more damage is inflicted, re-triggering the assault. But if not re-triggered, they will reset and return to the Mech Cluster. Structures spawned usually spawn near the center of the cluster. Structures can be psychic droners, toxic spewers, smoke spewers, sun blockers, psychic suppressors, weather controllers, EMI dynamos, defoliators, and climate adjusters. All pose a unique threat and can be covered in a separate video. Turrets include auto mortars, auto inferno turrets, auto charge turrets, and mini slugger turrets. Lastly, Mech Clusters can spawn numerous other structures and fortifications that allow them to continuously spawn more mechs, shield their position, or request reinforcements. Auto mortars are a big concern because they will shell your colony continuously without the need for ammo or an operator. Ways to address Mech Clusters. Smokes. Utilizing smoke weapons and utility items will allow you to attack turrets without any retaliation or detection. This isn't true for Mechanoids, but only their turrets. Smoke is a must for fighting Mech Clusters, as their turrets have massive range. Whether you smoke the turret directly or the area where your pawn stands, they will be undetected by the turrets. Roofing mortar. One great way to handle an auto mortar within a Mech Cluster is to build a single wall or pillar and roof tiles above it. Once built, the auto mortar will be rendered unusable. Approaching undetected can be very difficult. Building within an active Mech Cluster is nearly impossible. You'll need to utilize invisibility, skipping, or jump packs, which can help make it possible. Avoid proximity to activators if possible. Targeting turrets and unstable power cells. Turrets and unstable power cells are highly volatile. When damaged, they often trigger a sparking state, followed by a powerful detonation that can create chain reactions, destroying whole clusters with minimal effort. Berserk and Psychic Lances. Targeting Mechanoids within the cluster with Berserk Psycasts and Psychic Lances will create a mutiny from within. I would suggest targeting Centipedes, as they have the most bulk and stats. If you're lucky, they can trigger events to destroy the cluster without much effort on your part, especially if they manage to spark one of those turrets and or power cells. Animal Pulsar. Manhunting animals will also hunt active mechanoids. Active being the key word. Sleeping mechs will not be targeted by animal pulsars. We've covered animal pulsars multiple times already. You know the benefit of using them. They make for a great raid defense. Mortars. Shelling the enemy may require some extra EMP mortars added into the mix to break through their shields, but this can be a safe and effective way to handle a mech cluster. Extra defense. Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all. If a mech cluster doesn't pose an immediate threat to your colony, it can serve as an extra defense. Other raids can trigger its activation or engage in a fight with the cluster, resulting in a win-win situation for your colony overall. Infestations. Infestation raids are insectoid only, and they will attack your colony from underground. This kind of raid requires you to have a structure within 30 tiles of an overhead mountain ceiling, otherwise it will not trigger. This is separate from the special event that can occur during drilling, 2-deep infestations, which don't spawn hives and can't be as large as regular infestations. Once an infestation spawns, insectoids will appear with various hives and mounds of insect jelly. These insectoids will mine and wander about until provoked. Ignoring them will give them time to multiply, which they will continue to do indefinitely. It is best to handle these insects as soon as possible. Ways to handle infestations. No mountains. To prevent infestations from ever happening, you can avoid mountain terrain in its entirety. Simple and sweet. Mountain prevention. If near or in a mountain, you can prevent infestations by filling tiles under overhead mountain ceilings. Just like drop pods, insectoids cannot spawn in occupied tiles. Building a wall every other tile prevents infestations completely. Also, temperatures deter and prevent infestations. Anything below -8 degrees Celsius, 17.6 degrees Fahrenheit, lowers the odds at an unknown rate, until -17 degrees Celsius, 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a 0% chance for an infestation to spawn. Light also factors in infestation chance, as anything below 51% lit will add to the chance of an infestation occurring. Melee block. Infestations only have one ranged attacker in its ranks, which are the larvae. All other insectoids are melee only, making them perfect for melee blocking. Position your pawns so that they will face one insectoid at a time and pick them off one by one. This can become less and less effective as you move further into the game, from mid-game to late game. Flame traps. Carving out a room with wood and carpet tile and keeping it warm and dark is a great way to lure infestations to the target location. IEDs can automatically trigger the burn conditions desired, and just sit back and watch the bugs cook. This isn't foolproof, as you cannot control when or where an infestation occurs, or how large it will be. Large infestations will spill over into neighboring areas, creating terrible situations. Also, insectoids will be quick to target your claim structures once aggroed, attacking claim doors and walls, picking them off. Insectoids roam and protect their hives. Just like mechanoids around clusters and ships, the insectoids will eventually lose aggro and reset to their hives if still standing. Utilizing large distances or peaks where you can close them off, you can rotate in and out and slowly whittle the insectoids down. Manhunter Packs. Manhunter Packs are packs of animals inflicted with scaria that will mercilessly attack humanoids and mechanoids, ignoring insectoids and other animals. These raids are most basic and pose the least threat. Many of the inflicted animals will immediately become rotten corpses once they are killed, posing as an extra threat of rot stink. Ways to handle Manhunter Packs. Waiting them out. Simply closing doors and staying within your colony fortifications will prevent Manhunter Packs from attacking your colony. So long as no priority targets are pathable, they will simply pace for a day or so before slowly, one by one, wandering off and losing aggro. Melee block. If you have to fight them, the melee block works very well here. The only scale of threat is the type of animal and the number of animals that spawn, making this a feasible strategy at all phases of your story. Picking off or any killbox. These are all greatly effective against Manhunter Packs. These mindless animals will behave like a normal raider, but with worse AI. They won't usually attack your structures. If no clear path is provided, they will only target doors that were recently used, and only for a brief period of time. Shambler Assaults. Shambler Assaults will immediately attack your colony. They appear on the edge of the map, and after a few seconds will aggro and swarm your colony. Their priority system isn't clear as they tend to randomly attack things in their path, sometimes ignoring animals and furniture. Unlike Manhunter Packs, they will target your structures and walls to great effect, and often clustering in areas. Shamblers are immune to psychic abilities and tools. They also aren't impacted by pain. Humanoid shamblers wearing gear get the benefit of that gear. Shambler Assaults expire after 3 to 10 hours and will simply fall over and die. When killed, they will sometimes get back up and fight again, unless they die from running out of time. Ways to handle Shambler Assaults. Melee block. In my opinion, Shambler Assaults is the raid where a good melee block is the most effective. Shamblers pile locations mindlessly, attacking slowly and moving more slowly. The more shamblers caught in the crowd, the better. Fire. While only mildly effective, it can be helpful to set piles of shamblers ablaze and let them burn to death slowly. It will not slow them down or stop them from targeting their priorities, but merely do damage over time to them. Kiting. Shamblers will largely ignore killboxes. They're mindless zombies after all. Getting out and facing them is sometimes the best play, especially with great ranged weapons such as the assault rifle. Mix in some turret packs and hunter drones and you can kite and kill these enemies to great effect. Shambler Swarms and Shambler Animal Swarms. Both Shambler Swarms and Shambler Animal Swarms are part of the Anomaly DLC. They are large groups of undead that enter at the edge of the map. They will roam from one edge of the map to the other. Once aggroed by your colony, they will aggressively attack your colony as if a Shambler Assault. It is possible to aggro small groups of the Shambler Swarm at a time, breaking them off piece by piece. Also, if other factions aggro the Shamblers, it won't necessarily mean they'll aggro your colony too. Ways to handle Shambler Swarms. Avoid. The simplest way to handle a Shambler Swarm or Animal Swarm is to simply avoid them. Leaving these undead abominations alone is easily the best strategy. With enough time, they will leave your map. Just be sure none of your pawns are sighted or provoke them. Those that don't leave your map will drop dead after 2 to 4 days. If you're lucky, they'll even act as an extra layer of defense against other raids that enter your map. Other anomaly raids. Activating the Void Monolith changes how raids would generally work and have a somewhat complicated track of events. Considering this is a chain event and is largely unique to the anomaly playthrough, I will cover this in another video if desired. just let me know down in the comments. I hope this Rimworld guide to raids has been helpful and informative. We've gone through and we've broken down the processes of the raid, from how it's determined, how it grows, how it's recognized, and how to combat them each individually. If you enjoy this content, please make sure to drop me a like and a subscribe, as it really helps me out in the channel. If you'd like to see more or different types of content, make sure you drop down in the description and tell me all about it. With that said, thanks so much for joining me and watching this video up to this point. I deeply appreciate you, and I hope that this impacts your story in a positive way. A huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. You guys are the ones that allow me to create such great content for anyone and everyone, and for me to pursue my interests, Rimworld being one of them. With that said, make sure you check out the links down below, as we've gotten everything in there from our Discord, the Patreon, as well as a couple of great resources to help you in your Rimworld playthrough. Until next time, I'll catch you later, and good luck on the Rim. Bye.